Good evening and welcome back to our webinar series. This evening, we're going to be looking at IELTS speaking activity, and we are going to be focusing on idiomatic language, which is quite a sophisticated way that the English language is used by native speakers. And it enables us to create a much more natural sounding language and really expand our lexical resource in such a way that we're much more likely to get a higher band score. So idiomatic expressions really are a great way to increase, to ramp up your vocabulary and start sounding like a native speaker, which is what we want to do. So let me just start by sharing my screen with you. Just a minute. Okay, there we go. All right, and grab my slides. Okay, great. Here we are. Okay. So in order to get above a band 6 for your lexical resource, which is your vocabulary, in an IELTS speaking test, it's necessary to use at least some idiomatic vocabulary. Some. Not a lot, but some. So if we were to take a look at band 7, lexical resource descriptor, what does it say? It says uses vocabulary resource flexibly to discuss a variety of topics. Flexibly here is being able to use verbs, nouns, adjectives, adverbs, using this vocabulary in different ways. Now, it then says uses some less common and idiomatic vocabulary. So here we have a clear reference to idiomatic vocabulary as a band 7. And then shows some awareness of style and collocation with some inappropriate choices. This means we are using words in the right kind of way, not in an unusual or out of context fashion. And finally, uses paraphrase effectively. So idiomatic language is informal in nature. It's not a formal way of talking. So for this reason, it's not going to be appropriate in a task 2 IELTS essay, which, as you know, is a formal exercise. Now, it may be possible to use some idiomatic expressions or idiomatic language in your general writing task if the letter and the subject of the letter is informal. So a really informal letter to a friend, to a family member about some social event or some social activity. Now, this kind of letter is very informal and quite personal, so we are allowed to use some idiomatic English in here. Now, when we do our speaking test, when are we going to use idiomatic language? Well, the best place really to use these idiomatic expressions that you have been learning and spending some time to become familiar with is part 2 of your speaking test, when you are asked to speak for 1 to 2 minutes about a given topic, because this is the time when you really have the most freedom to speak about things that you wish to talk about. So there is some opportunity here to use the idiomatic expressions that you know. Okay, so let's move on. Let's have a look at how that might work. So here's a classic part 2 cue. It says, describe a time when your computer broke down. You should say when it was, what you were doing, what you did about it, and how you felt about it. So this is a past event. We are describing something that happened before. It's going to be mostly in the simple past or the past continuous, and possibly you might use a little bit of past perfect or perhaps present perfect. So I remember when my computer crashed while I was writing an assignment at uni. I nearly hit the roof when I realized I had lost most of my work. I don't normally have a short fuse. It normally takes a lot for me to lose my cool, but this felt like the end of the world. I was just finding my feet in a new class when it happened. What made it even worse was that my computer had cost an arm and a leg, so I didn't expect it to happen with a new machine. It just goes to show that you never really know what's around the corner. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 idioms in the space of probably 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 sentences. 7 idioms in 6 sentences. And this is perfectly natural sounding. So it doesn't sound like I'm trying to use idioms in an inappropriate way. In fact, these idioms match the story quite appropriately. So this goes to show you that if you have enough idioms available to you when you speak, then in 1 to 2 minutes, you will have many opportunities to use these idioms without it sounding odd or inappropriate or simply being used in the wrong kind of way. So they're really very versatile, which is another word for flexible. So if we have a look at some of the idioms that I used there, I've got some idioms of anger. Now, the first one I have there is hit the roof. I hit the roof. Now, underneath we have blow a fuse. And I've also got blow your top, blow your lid, blow up, and blow your cool. So all of these endings are attached to the verb blow. Okay? And then I have another one there, go ballistic and go bananas. So there, just here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have literally 8 or 9 idioms that express anger. Now, that's a lot of ways to say that you are angry. A lot more than you will need in a speaking test. In fact, as I said, you really only need 3 or 4 idioms about anger. That's going to be more than enough to use in a speaking test. So I've got a couple of examples there. After my computer crashed, I hit the roof. When my sister broke my new phone, I went bananas. The guy at the petrol station went ballistic when he was hit by the car. My teacher at high school had a very short fuse. When the referee gave me a red card, I blew my cool and started shouting. So all of these are very simple, quite common situations, and we all get angry. Anger is very much an everyday emotion. It's nothing unusual. So we have many opportunities to use idioms to describe feeling angry. Now, remember that whatever idioms we use, we need to change that verb form to match the appropriate tense, as well as matching our pronouns. So for the example of when, the guy at the petrol station went ballistic. It's not go, it's went. When the referee gave me a red card, I blew my cool, blew my cool. I didn't blew the cool, I blew my cool. So we need to use these personal pronouns and change the verbs to make this idiom sound natural and appropriate in the context of the story. So we need to make these little adjustments to make sure we're using them correctly. Let's have a look at another example. Describe a class you took that was very memorable. You should address when you took the class, where you took the class, the subject of the class, and why the class was so useful. So again, we have this cue card. We are talking about a past experience. We're going to be using simple past, past continuous, maybe a little bit of past perfect, possibly. But mostly it's going to be the past tenses. I remember taking a singing class when I was studying music at uni. It just blew me away at the time. Honestly, I was completely in the dark about singing classes, and the teacher really opened my eyes to how much fun it was. I had a blast and ended up joining the class the next semester. Of course, when I started the class, I was a bundle of nerves. And when I started to sing, I had butterflies in my stomach. But as time went by, I found my feet and started feeling a lot more at home in the class. And by the time we finished semester, I was really comfortable letting my hair down in front of other students. So again, in this very short excerpt, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 phrasal verbs. None of them are really out of context, and they all match the story. So let's just have a little look at some of these phrasal verbs before we move on. So the first one, it blew me away. It blew me away. So blow away is an amazing experience. So it blew me away. It was an amazing experience. Mind-blowing, absolutely stunning. When I visited the art gallery, the painting of Picasso blew me away. Or I was blown away by the music at the concert, which is passive voice. So something blows us away. It is very powerful and it is an amazing thing. So blew me away. Let's have a look at a few more that we just mentioned. Whoops. I was in the dark. I was in the dark. This means I know nothing. I am in the dark. Now, clearly, that doesn't mean I am outside in the dark. Remember that idioms have this figurative meaning, and we don't want to think of them literally as being in the dark. So I was in the dark. I knew nothing about it. So this is a very common expression when you learn something that you didn't know. When I started my new job, I was in the dark about everything. What does that mean? When I started my new job, I didn't know anything. Nice and simple, but it's so much better to say I was in the dark about everything than I didn't know anything. The next one, I was in the dark about the breakup until my friend gave me the bad news. I had no idea about the breakup until my friend gave me the bad news. Another one, open my eyes to learn something new, something surprising. When I went to the concert, it opened my eyes to classical music. I had a new experience of classical music. Before that, I was in the dark about classical music. But the concert opened my eyes. The best thing about reading books is that it, which is reading books, can open your eyes to another world. Reading books can open your eyes to a new experience. Watching documentaries can open your eyes to another underwater world. Travel is a great way to open your eyes to different cultures. Studying overseas is a great way to open your eyes to a different culture. So, open your eyes is to learn, to discover something new. Then we have a blast, which means to have a lot of fun. And of course, this is something we all like to do. So we had a blast last weekend when we went out clubbing. We had a lot of fun. But of course, a lot of fun is not great English. It's quite bland. It's quite ordinary. It's not particularly expressive. So it's so much better to say we had a blast. A blast means an explosion. So the word blast captures the feeling of fireworks and of excitement that really comes when you have great fun. So it's a lot more expressive. I'm going to have a blast at the rock festival next month. Again, I'm going to have a fantastic time at the rock festival next month. I can't remember the last time I went to a party and really had a blast. I can't remember the last time I went to a party and really had a good time. It's been ages. So here, this idiomatic expression, it really communicates the feeling and the emotion of having fun very well. And that's what idioms are about. They really are very expressive. And so they communicate the way you feel much better than ordinary plain language. Then we have a bundle of nerves. Now here, a bundle of nerves is very close to the word nervous. So we can understand what a bundle of nerves means, because nerves and nervous are the same word family. I was a bundle of nerves before my oral exam last month. I was very nervous before my oral exam last month. Whenever I go out on a date, I am a bundle of nerves. I feel very nervous when I go out on a date. And the last one, if I have a job interview, I'm usually a bundle of nerves. Now, again, we all feel nervous at different times when we have a job interview, when we start something new, when we meet someone new. So it's not uncommon to use I was a bundle of nerves. Then we have a couple more I didn't quite get through. Have butterflies in the stomach. Now this one also means I feel very nervous, but it's quite a figurative language because we don't have butterflies in our stomach, but we can imagine these little butterflies flickering about in our stomach. It would make us feel nervous. The players must have had butterflies in their stomach before the grand final. So they were very nervous before the big match. She never has butterflies in her stomach, no matter how many people are watching her. She's very confident. She's cool as a cucumber. She's like a female James Bond. She never has butterflies in her stomach, no matter how many people are watching her. If you have butterflies in your stomach, you should take a few deep breaths to relax. So if you're feeling nervous, take a few deep breaths to relax. Then we have find the feet. I found my feet, which means to get used to something. Again, it's we can imagine I found my feet. I am now used to what I'm doing. It took me 3 months to find my feet when I was living in Japan. Again, it has nothing to do with waking up and you can't see your feet. You've lost your feet. Of course, it's a figurative expression. When you start a new job, it always takes time to find your feet. Once again, to get comfortable, to get used to something, to feel familiar, to feel at home. I feel like I've finally found my feet at university. Finally, I feel comfortable I'm relaxed, I'm confident, I know what I'm doing, and I have found my feet. And the last one, to feel at home or to be at home. So she is at home living in Paris. Now here you might think she is actually at home in Paris, but it doesn't mean that. In fact, her home could be New York or London or Sydney. What this means is she feels at home, which means she probably can speak French quite well. She has some friends there. Perhaps she has a job. She has somewhere to live. She might be studying. And so she is at home living in Paris. The next one, I'm at home on the tennis court. What does that mean? I'm at home on the tennis court. I live on a tennis court? Obviously not. Even if I play tennis a lot, I'm not going to live there. So I'm at home on the tennis court. I play lots of tennis. I'm comfortable playing tennis. I'm good at playing tennis. I'm at home on the tennis court. I'm at home playing tennis. Doesn't mean I'm at home playing tennis. Sounds like it, but it doesn't. He is at home in front of a computer. It means he's comfortable working in front of a computer. He doesn't mean he's at home. And of course, most idioms have the figurative meaning, so you know that you can't take it literally. I mean, we don't actually have butterflies in our stomach. You don't actually have to find your feet. But some, like feel at home, they do have a literal meaning. I am at home. So we need to be a little careful with these idioms that we don't get confused and take the meaning literally when actually it's the figurative meaning, it's the idiomatic meaning that we need to understand. And that is important. So as we move up in our band descriptors, we can have a look at band 8, and we see here uses a wide vocabulary resource readily and flexibly to convey precise meaning. And then the second point, uses less common and idiomatic vocabulary skillfully with occasional inaccuracies. So here we have it. Again, to get our band 8, we are using idiomatic vocabulary skillfully. And that is what we've been doing previously. So we really want to get good at using these idiomatic expressions. Let's have a look at one more just to demonstrate how they might work. So describe your dream job. You should address what the job is, the job requirements, the activities that are done on the job, and explain why this job is your dream job. So we have 4 different points that we need to address in our speaking activity about our dream job. So I've given you another example of how we might use some idioms here. I'm not the kind of person who walks around with their head in the clouds, unlike my baby sister. Nevertheless, if I could do anything, I'd be, and here I'd is I would. Okay, it's a second conditional. I'd be in 7th heaven. if I could be a film director. I'd bend over backwards to make the actors happy, because without their cooperation, no film could be made. Of course, it's almost impossible to get your foot in the door these days. And I'm sure it's the money men who really call the shots on the film set. Nevertheless, I would never throw in the towel if I were a film director, and I'd be on cloud 9 if it were ever to become true. So once again, we have 7 idiomatic expressions in probably a very short paragraph of maybe 60 words. So this really demonstrates that idioms are quite a significant part of our vocabulary, and we have them for all kinds of different things, just so many. And it can be quite hard to remember them when there are so many. So it's important to just collect your idioms bit by bit, gathering them up the same way you gather your vocabulary. So let me just run through what was some of the meaning of these idioms that I said. So head in the clouds. Well, obviously, I don't have my head in the clouds. I'm not a giant, but I'm a dreamer. So I dream. I'm not practical. I'm not a pragmatic person. I just have my head in the clouds. Now, that might be a good thing, certainly for young children and kids. They walk around with their heads in the clouds all day long. The next one, in 7th heaven. I'd be in 7th heaven. Well, 7th heaven is very, very happy. So I'm in 7th heaven with my new job. I'm in 7th heaven with my new girlfriend. I'm in 7th heaven because I just won lotto. 7th heaven is not just happy. It is very, very, very happy. It's a special kind of happiness. You wouldn't say, I had a nice coffee, I'm in 7th heaven, unless you haven't had coffee for a long time, and then it might be something that makes you very happy. Bend over backwards. Okay, like a gymnast. Now, bend over backwards means do anything. Obviously, it's not easy to bend over backwards, except for some of these Russian, Chinese gymnasts who seem to be able to do it very easily. So here's a sentence. She bends over backwards for her kids. Clearly, it doesn't mean she's a gymnast and every morning she bends over backwards for her kids while they eat breakfast. Nor does she bend over backwards when she brings them breakfast. No, what does this mean? It means she will do anything for her kids. She will drive them far away to their swimming practice, to their tennis practice, to their singing practice. She will do anything to make them happy. A few more there. Get your foot in the door. What does that mean, to get your foot in the door? It means to get a chance. Here's your chance. I wanted to buy her a drink, but couldn't get my foot in the door. Okay, this has nothing to do with the bar, and I needed to get through the door to get to the bar. It has nothing to do with walking to the bar. It simply means she didn't give me a chance. She didn't want a drink, she wasn't interested, and she just ignored me or told me that she wasn't interested. So, I want to get a new job as a film director. It's hard. I need to get my foot in the door. Okay. The next one is call the shots. Now this call the shots actually has a kind of film meaning of when we do make a film, we need to call the shots, the close-up shots, the long shots and the zoom shots. But the meaning here really means to make the decisions. So it's not just film directors who call the shots, but the boss calls the shots. The manager of the football team calls the shots. The person or persons who make the big decisions call the shots. The CEO had to call the shots in the meeting. There's your example. And then the next one we have is throw in the towel. So throw in the towel means to quit, to give up. The team threw in the towel after half time. It was very disappointing. So to throw in the towel is to admit that you can't do it, you can't win, you can't succeed, so you throw in the towel. You give up, which you don't want to do. Particularly in your IELTS training, you don't want to throw in the towel after a bad result. And then the last one was on cloud 9. Now this is very much like seventh heaven. Extremely happy. I was in seventh heaven. I was on cloud 9. Both of them mean extremely happy. She was on cloud 9 after her boyfriend bought her a pearl necklace for their anniversary. She was absolutely thrilled to bits when her boyfriend bought her a pearl necklace for their anniversary. She was extremely happy to get such a beautiful present. Okay, so idiomatic expressions in English are easier to remember than normal vocabulary because of their figurative, their visual language. It's easier to remember. Get your foot in the door. Throw in the towel. I'm on cloud 9. So the visual nature of idioms assists us in trying to remember them. And I certainly think they are worthwhile to grab. Now, it's a little tip here, but because there are so many idiomatic expressions, it's probably a good idea to learn a few idiomatic expressions from or for some common feelings or situations. For example, sadness, happiness, excitement, frustration, disappointment, loss, sickness, success, anger. All of these emotions, all of these situations that lead to these emotions are very common. And you are more than likely to come across more than one of these in your IELTS speaking test, without any doubt. So you are going to have plenty of opportunity to use these idioms in your speaking test. So to sum up then, let's just get to the top there. Idiomatic expressions add colour and a naturalness to your speaking test. They add real rich emotional quality, and they really have a great way of making you sound fluent and natural. So I can't recommend them highly enough. In order to get higher than a band 6, you need to use some idiomatic expressions. So if you want to get a band 7 or 8 or 9, then you need to use some. The best place to use the idioms is in part 2 of your speaking test. Now, that is not the only place. You can use them earlier or even later, but part 2 is quite an open space for you to discuss the questions that have been raised. So you will find a space in there to use some idioms. Now, idioms are very flexible, so you don't need to learn a lot of different ways to use them. You know, an idiom about anger can be used in all kinds of different ways because many, many things can and do make us angry. Now, you should learn a few idioms to express these basic emotions that I talked about before: anger, sadness, happiness, disappointment, frustration, sickness, etc. So that's really your responsibility to go and find the idiomatic expressions for these different emotions. And you don't need to learn a lot, just 3, 2, 3, 4, perhaps, the ones that you can remember best because of the visual language that enables you to really grasp what it's all about. Now, any idiomatic expressions must obviously be adapted to the tense that you're speaking and to the person as well. So you need to change the pronouns, the personal pronoun or the possessive pronoun. You probably need to change the verb if there's a verb in the idiom. So you need to make those little adjustments. Now, the best idioms are the ones you use the most, so you practice them as much as possible. It's a great idea to grab 1 or 2 every day and just use them as much as you can. Play with them, have some fun. As I said, the idioms are easy to remember. And finally, of course, as I said, idioms are not meant to be taken literally, even if it sounds like they should. And we need to be a little bit careful that we don't take them literally when they are not meant to be taken like that. And that can be a little bit tricky at times. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. A bit of talking today, but good luck with your idiom acquisition or collecting your idioms. And I'm sure that they will make your language much more expressive and dynamic and natural, and you will sound much more fluent. Thank you.